Friendship West, I've already told you, we are going to be that game-changing Christian movement that connects people to Jesus Christ, but we don't stop there. We fight for justice. And in fighting for justice, we are determined to adhere to what the drum major for justice, Martin Luther King Jr., challenged us to do. He challenged us to not be thermometers that register what's going on, but to be thermostats that regulates what's going on. And because we're hooked up to that power, we're going to transform the environment. I want to present to you our Minister of Justice, the wonderful Danielle Ayer. She's going to tell you how we are going to be that game-changing Christian community, or movement, I should say, that is fighting for justice. And as we fight for justice, we're going to transform this environment, because Friendship West is thermostatic and never thermometric. Danielle Ayers.
Today are not new. They are simply reborn and repackaged. So I want to talk a little bit about how we're going to fight for justice, and it really means four major things. Number one, we're always going to have a Sankofa moment. And what does that mean? That means we want to always look back to where we came from so we'll know where we're going. And as Dr. Wright always quotes Dr. Cornel West and says, you cannot know your roots, R-O-U-T-E-S, if you do not know your roots, ROOTS. And so one of the things that we can do, I have some extra calendars from the Equal Justice Initiative. This is an amazing calendar where you can start tonight. It has relevant pictures of what happened. This is the young lady standing in front of the police officers after Alton Sterling was killed in Baton Rouge. And it has information, facts, so you can know systematically how this thing works. And it gives you information from the 1800s all the way to 2016. So it's important as we fight for justice that we all understand that we're fighting social structures, not individuals, but it is a system. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but powers and principalities in high places. So we need to make sure we understand that. Number two, we're going to treat the people's needs and our needs as holy. With all due respect, with all the pomp and circumstance of church these days, I know we're trying to be very 21st century, but we must remember Jesus did not found a church. He founded a movement. And so we also want to be sure that we are in preparation for the long haul. This does not happen overnight. So we want to make sure that we don't get comfortable with some of our obvious forms of successes, because we find ourselves still fighting some of the same battles, but sometimes we get a little too comfortable. And lastly, when we say we're fighting for justice, yes, we do public policy. We try to fight for change, but as my mentor, Dr. Ivy Carruthers, always reminds me, it's not just about policies, but ultimately, as a faith community, we are looking for the transformation of the heart. So I want to highlight just four major areas, and this is just a highlight. We'll be doing a lot more than what I'm saying, but I just at least want to begin to talk about some of the areas that we'll be involved in. Number one is food justice. So that means a lot of things, but very quickly, four things that we want to highlight tonight will be our village co-op that we'll be relaunching in April. And of course, we're always trying to tell you, we're trying to address the issue of food deserts here in Oak Cliff, and particularly around Friendship West. So we're always asking you to come help us volunteer, not only to till the garden, but to plant, to harvest, and to help us sell. It is not just about selling the fresh produce. We've had some of our young people who have come on Sundays, and they help us in the store. So what does that mean? They're learning what it means to take inventory. They're learning what it means to have customer service. They're learning what it means to work. They're learning what it means to actually run a business and see Black people exchanging money. So it's more than just selling food, but it's also showing our young people what it means to be entrepreneurs. Number two, we'll launch a new project called The Harvest, where we're actually partnering with the Harvest Project, which is a project here in Dallas that offers fresh produce and fruit at no cost for people who cannot afford it. So we will be a distribution site, if you will, beginning in April, where people who cannot afford food can come here and get it at no cost. Because much of this food is actually thrown away. We'll be picking this food up from downtown where grocery stores come in and get their produce that you buy in the supermarkets. What they do, they literally take food from the floor to the ceiling and put it in a trash compactor. Instead of them throwing it away, what we're going to do is be one of their many distribution sites to make sure people who go hungry and don't have access to come here and get food. So in addition to doing those what I would call social service type of things where we're giving people food, we also want to make sure that we're still doing a policy agenda. So we will be asking you from time to time to help us in terms of pushing policy forward as we work with Bread for the World, which is a national organization, as well as Texas Hunger Initiative, which is local at the city and county and state level. Because we're concerned about not just us, but we're concerned about all those who may go hungry in this nation, especially our children. So we want to make sure they are food secure. We also will continue our work around economic justice. Many of you, a few years ago, helped us get involved in the living wage campaign, which means we're simply saying we want to make sure people earn enough money so they can actually survive and pay for the things that they need and live a life where they're not struggling, but they make a living wage. We'll continue our work around predatory lending at both the city, state, and federal level. And it's now more important than ever that we stand behind our work around predatory lending because our current president is trying to dismantle the Consumer Protection Financial Bureau. As you know, Dr. Haynes has been very involved in that. He's testified before Congress, and he's trying to dismantle that. So it's important that we really rally around the CFPB and Director Cordray to make sure that does not happen. And I want to keep encouraging you to be a part of the Faith Cooperative Federal Credit Union. Not just open up a savings account and just leave your money there, but to look to us when you need a car loan, new or used, or a secure or unsecured loan. Make us your first option when it comes to banking. We'll continue work around criminal justice in terms of police brutality and in terms of working with the police department as it relates to community policing. Not their definition of community policing, but our lens as it comes from a faith community. We'll continue to do that. We'll continue our work around prisons for profits. And then in terms of education, as many of you know, you may know recently if you've been watching the news, that Dallas Independent School District Board passed a new disciplinary policy that eliminates suspensions of pre-K through second graders. And so Friendship West, along with many other community organizations led by Texas Organizing Project, made that happen. And of course, you probably recall our efforts to support the students at South Oak Cliff High School, how we went down to the board, and how we really did what we really helped them and journeyed with them during that process to make sure that they secured the necessary funds, not to patch up the school, but to get a new school. And so we really want to know that our current Secretary of Education that sits in Washington, D.C. is a major threat to us. And so we have to be more vigilant now more than ever to improve and secure public education. So we'll be calling on former educators, current educators, and those who want to really be involved in what can we do locally to make sure we secure education for our children. We'll be calling on you to do that, even if that means as a church or as a faith community, we have to set up an alternative curriculum to supplement what our children are not getting in school. And so connecting to these movements demonstrates that we understand that there is a real intersection of our faith and our public life. Because if we're going to connect persons to Christ, we must be sure that we are offering solutions to the issues that make life so difficult and that takes place between Sundays. And so in the months to come, we will, with intentionality, offer ways that all of us can be educated on the issues, equip us to be involved. And so the last thing I want to do, we're going to do our first act together as it relates to fighting for justice. So if you can please stand, we are going to engage in a communal prayer by way of a litany. If you can direct your attention to the screens. All around us, we hear rhetoric defending the status quo, defending the advantages and privileges already secured by those who are ahead. All around us, we see failing schools, poverty, hunger, hostile political parties and policies. However, we as disciples of Christ are called to follow Jesus and to bring light to the gospel to bear upon the issues of diversity, liberation, and inclusiveness. Oh God, may we do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with you in the spirit of those who went before us and those among us. God of grace, we commit to welcoming the stranger, taking care of the widow, the orphan, our children, and our community, and all those who feel the brunt of injustice. God of justice, guide us forever on the path we pray. Keep us from falling into trappings of depersonalization, exploitation, and individualism that gives rise to injustices. All together.